This is the concluding part of the good girl syndrome conversation that we're having this morning on Tea or Coffee. Now we're going to be joining our guest this morning. She is Dawn Asiedu, a content strategist and communications professional. She's currently working on building the largest podcast community in Africa. She's an advocate for vulnerable conversations that provoke personal development and growth, and also seeks to help young people break the limitations in their mind and environment so they can build an impactful life. And this is one of the reasons why we're having her this morning to have the conversation with us on the good girl syndrome. If you're just joining us, we've been having the good girl syndrome, talking about, how we can change the narrative and make sure that women are taken away from that box where, they're conditioned. And then because of that, they've been made to face hardships, made to face gender-based violence, made to face injustice in their lives. And they've just been, stepped on, put down and pushed aside because they've been made to believe that if they don't have these characteristics, if they don't present these characteristics, they cannot be a better person in life. Now it's time for us to join our guest, Dawn Asiedu, a content strategist. Good morning, Dawn. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope you're staying safe. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you very well.
Oh, all right. All right, so the conversation this morning is on the good girl syndrome. Now, my question for you this morning is, who is a good girl?
Thank you for that question. I think a good girl is somebody a girl who has been taught to direct all her actions externally. And so she does things for the good of other people. She wants to be perceived as compliant, as, calm, as agreeable, as nice. And so all of her actions are directed towards those compliments or those words. She has not learned how to love herself. She has not learned how to be audacious and do things for herself. And, that's what I think is great.
Right.
Okay, where do these narratives come from? Where do they stem from in our society? What social factors inform this narrative and these characteristics of what a good girl or a good woman is supposed to be?
I think it's culture.
Hello?
Are you there, Dawn?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. So where do these characteristics of what a good girl is, these definitions of what a good woman is, what factors in our society form these definitions?
I think that basically say culture. I think that's how it summed it up. It basically came from culture and how a woman was expected to behave, how a woman was expected to treat other people, because women grew up in the life that they were supposed to serve others. They were supposed to be available for others. Their lives are really not for them, they're for the good of other people. So, you're growing up as a woman to help your siblings, to train your children, to be there for your husband. And, nothing is really about you. And with that kind of mentality, it's very easy to shrink back into what society only expects of you rather than what you want to do with your life. I think the how that mentality grew is what created the concept of the good girl.
All right. Now, should there really be a label for how certain females carry themselves or choose to behave? Should there be a label for women generally around the world? Should women be labeled for their characters? Like, should there be a label for a good girl? Should there be a label for a bad girl? Should there even be a thing as a good girl or a bad girl?
Well, personally, I think that there has to be certain standards of love and respect and empathy and honor that should be given. This single person in society. I don't think it's supposed to be a gender thing. Because nobody's having conversations about boys and bad boys. Maybe not. Maybe right? It's really just about being true to yourself and what you want to do and how you want to live your life. And also, of course, regarding other people, because there's also a culture that preaches that you should do whatever you want to do regardless of how it affects other people. And I don't appreciate that thought either. I think if you are doing what is good for you, for your life, for the impact that you want to make, and you are also considering other people, you are empathetic, you are loving, you are caring, you are respectful to the people around you, then that's a good balance to have. I don't want to say you're either a good girl or a bad girl. Just abiding by these principles, that's a good balance to have.
All right, we're still having a conversation with Dawn Ashedu on the good girl syndrome, and this question that I'm going to ask her is, why do men seek good girls? I mean, you're also going to ask a question that you've asked her before, but we can't hear it very clearly, so I want us to get
I think it's important for us to actually understand the role of men in all of this. You know, we can't, again, this conversation is really centered around gender relationships, then gender identity, really, you know, and you know, if we're talking about gender identity, because again, identity is a negotiation with our environment, identity is a negotiation with social factors and whatnot, and you know, when it comes to gender identity, the social factor that is probably informing the sense of self in gender identity is the opposite side of that gender identity, which it will be the men. So, and you know, and obviously, you know, this count cannot be overstated. We live in a patriarchal society, as in we live in a society that is controlled by men, that is, you know, dominated by the policies that men put forward. So it is important for us to understand the role of men in these conversations. All right, Dawn, are you with us now? Can you hear us clearly?
Great.
All right. So my question to you before the line went off: what is the role of men in changing this narrative of what a good girl is? Do men have a role, and what is this role, in your opinion?
Okay, thank you. Men definitely have a role. Men have a role that is about as important as the role that women have. So grow up with a mentality is one thing. To decide to carry on with that mentality is another thing, and that has become your prerogative. It's no longer, this is how I grew up, but this is the way culture is. It's now you choosing to believe the things that you believe. So because it affects every single person, how women, the impact of women in society is going to affect every single person. It's going to affect the entire gender. It's going to affect women themselves, and it's going to have an effect on the men. It's definitely a responsibility for both men and women to take it up equally, to affect, to, you know, change how women see themselves and empower them in this life, right? Men will have children who will be daughters. If you don't understand the basics of these things, how can you assure yourself that you're going to train them up? You know, they are going to give them the empowerment from, you know, the time that they're young, to enable them have the impact that they should have in society. To your female friends, to your wife, you know, to every single person, to your mom, to whatever women is in your life, because we're all interconnected. I know people like to separate the genders, like, oh, women are this and then men are the other side, but it's not true. We all have a part to play. We're all interconnected. We're all intertwined, right? So I definitely believe that men have a role to play.
Okay. All right. So, why do you think guys actually want good girls? I mean, I would hear stuff like, okay, so if she's not loyal, if she's not committed, if she's not smart, if she's not this, if she's not that, and those are characteristics of a good girl. If she's not any of those things, like, why do you think that guys actually do seek good girls?
Why do guys seek good girls?
Yes. Why do you think they want them as a partner, as a lover, as a spouse?
How do I take this now? Okay, so I think it might really, sometimes it looks easier on the surface to be with somebody who is agreeable, who doesn't seem to contradict anything that you have to say, because good girls they put everybody else first. They won't give you quality feedback because they don't know how you would take it, and so on and so forth. So it might seem good on the surface to be with somebody who is submissive, agreeable, nice, and by the way, nice is not thinking as kind. It might seem good on the surface, and I think that's part of the things that might attract people to a seeming good girl. But I always find that in the long run, it causes some kind of complication.
Okay. All right. One more question before you go. So we were talking, before you joined us, we were talking about the characteristics of a good girl, and then we're talking about changing the narrative. And then I asked a question. I said, do we think that human beings are good or bad? Like, is there like a standard? Like, is a person totally good and totally bad? What do you think?
I think there's capacity for both to an unlimited extent. I mean, you have the capacity to be unlimited, to be bad in an unlimited way, and to be good in an unlimited way. And I think it just depends on which side you prefer to enhance. So there's definitely capacity for both in every single human being.
Is it necessary to change the good girl narrative in our society today?
Is it necessary to change the good girl narrative?
Is it important? Yes.
I absolutely believe.
Okay.
Because people might look at good girl on the surface, and of course everybody wants to be good in the sense of the word good, right? But you want people who are impactful.
Oh.
Not the shiny version of them. So yes, you should advocate for our true.
All right. Dawn, thank you so much
Thank
for
you
sharing
very
all
much.
your insights with us this morning. Do have yourself a fantastic day. All right, we just had a conversation with Dawn Asiedu. She is a communications professional. She's a content strategist, and she was able to help us with the conversation on the good girl syndrome. And that's how we're going to wrap the good girl syndrome conversation up this morning.